this stuff that's happening at the US legislative side of things is monumental. We're actually talking about the second authorized currency of the United States of America. They can't exactly start a new currency, can they? Article 1, Section 10 of the US Constitution says that no state may make anything a currency except gold and silver in the payment of debts. And that's the crux of this, is that these states everywhere across America have a constitutional right already enshrined, which gives them the ability to authorize gold and silver in transactions. The founding fathers were very suspicious or very kind of aware of the temptation to move into fiat currency systems and knew very well what that would do. That would lead to unchecked monetary policy and printing, which is of course what's happened. At the beginning of this year, we saw that Florida, your state, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Missouri all passed laws to make transactional gold and silver, as in electronic payments, legal tender, and for that to be able to be used. And of course, we enter a period now where, the next legislative session, where there's up to 17 different states that I was talking to who are looking to do the same thing.
This is Little by Little with Andy Schectman.
Good morning and welcome back, everyone, to a special episode of Little by Little. Bringing on with me today my good friend Jason Cozens, the CEO of Glint, a product that I am happy to be associated with, to be a U.S. representative of, and a company that I am personally invested in. Because not only is Jason a man of integrity and honesty and a great guy all the way around, but his product and his technology is second to none and world class. And I want to break it down a little bit and make it easier for people to understand some of the basic questions that surround Glint, what it has to offer, what it means, and the utility that it is not only providing, but seemingly providing in more and more states, perhaps even my home state of Florida, states like Texas, and all the other efforts Jason has put into bringing the concept of sound money back into focus. Jason, good to see you, my man. Thanks for being here, brother. How are you?
I'm good, thanks, Andy. It's really good to see you. Yeah, I was just back in the US, in Texas there for a few weeks. Just got back and now in London, and I'll be back again over the pond. I'm going backwards and forwards like a yo-yo.
Understood. You wear a cowboy hat while you're in London? While you're in Texas?
I've got British version of riding boots. They're like a Chelsea boot with brogues. Every time my American friends look at them, I think some of them can't quite work out whether they love them or can't stand them.
Well, you're someone who I respect an awful lot for doing things like spending time in Texas, speaking to legislators, same thing you've done in other states like Utah, bringing the concept of sound money into focus here in the United States. Not only do I want to talk about Glint itself, ways that we can perhaps open people's eyes to the utility that it offers, and even how people can cash out into physical metal through Miles Franklin's assistance. But why don't we start with what's going on with the legislative battle in the states? What new do you have to tell us that people should know about? And then we'll get into what's going on with Glint and the basics that perhaps we should have covered a long time ago a little bit more, so that people can understand, as do I, just how cool of a product it truly is.
Yeah, sure. Well, actually, last time I was in the States in Texas, I was at this fantastic gathering of I think maybe 17 or 18 different legislators and even treasurers from up to, I think, about 14 to 17 different states. And why? Well, for those of you who don't know and haven't heard Andy and I talk about this for a while, US states from across the country have been really worried increasingly about a number of different threats to their state and to their citizens in the state. And those threats include a number of different things, such as, inflation affects everybody. It affects those least well off actually the most, because as we've discussed, those closest to the money supply benefit disproportionately from everybody else. So if you're on low wages, inflation really affects you, and you have very little to protect yourself from that. From federal overreach, many states are worried about administrations overreaching really their federal powers and controlling them in ways they would rather they didn't. And this widening wealth gap, which is created by our current monetary system, is getting wider as more and more money printing leads to a devaluation of the currency. And of course, the government debt, $37 trillion now. It was so big, even I think when it was $34 trillion, that the Federal Senate passed Resolution 600, declaring that the national debt threatens the very national security of the country. So with those deficits unsustainable, irresponsible, and dangerous, and the current administration struggling to reduce them, all of these things together, though, form a whole cacophony of problems which the states and legislators in the states are really worried about. Many of them are related to the dollar, or the lack of the lack of choice that people have when it comes to their ability to save and spend. And some would say on the surface of it was, what can they do? They can't exactly start a new currency, can they? Article 1, Section 10 of the US Constitution says that no state may make anything a currency except gold and silver in the payment of debts. And that's the crux of this, is that these states everywhere across America have a constitutional right already enshrined, which gives them the ability to authorize gold and silver in transactions. The founding fathers were very suspicious, or very kind of aware of the temptation to move into fiat currency systems, and knew very well what that would do. That would lead to unchecked monetary policy and printing, which is of course what's happened. As any of the viewers on your show will know, even in 1 year during COVID, I think 20% of all dollars in existence were printed, and that's led to inflation, etc. Of course, the fiat currency has also allowed the federal government to build up all this debt, which I think, Andy, you'd argue has been beneficial to the US, hasn't it? I mean, the ability to carry on borrowing money has certainly, since 1971, brought dividends to the US.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no question that being the world reserve currency has allowed us to live beyond our means. But to your point, we're kind of at that critical level where, as an example, the U.S. government added $1 trillion to the national debt in just the last 71 days, from 37 trillion to 38 trillion. In 71 days, we're adding $1 trillion. And the interest cost on the debt is mounting to the point that it's becoming the largest line item on the balance sheet. And the scariest part about it all is none of this includes the cost of unfunded future liabilities, which are so large that they can only realistically be paid off through this massive devaluation of the dollar. To your point, holding gold and silver is not about becoming wealthy. It is wealth that protects us in this massive dollar debasement. A lot of people, and myself included, when these laws were bantered about and begun being passed throughout the various legislators, Utah and Wyoming and Idaho and Texas and Arkansas and Florida, et cetera, we all thought that, Jesus, are people going to be walking around the streets carrying gold and silver? Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think that Texas kind of has a model, which is, in many respects, I think, almost very similar, if not identical, to, in theory, the model that Glint uses. And I don't know what this really means for the greater expansion or what it means for Glint, and maybe you can talk about this, but the way that I see things happening is that if indeed these states do say that American gold coins and silver coins would be legal tender for all debts, public and private, the question is, how do you implement this? How do you provide change?
Yes.
The thought would be to deposit it into a depository run by the state and then receive an app or a credit card that would allow you to do that. Now, that's almost identical to what Glint is, where gold is held in a vault in Switzerland. You have a MasterCard and an app. And the other day I was trying to book a flight, and I was very upset that they didn't take American Express, or it was something I had to do in Aruba from the United States, an entry visa that you had to pay. And, well, the only thing I had on me was my Glint card. And just like that, the amount of gold, as I paid it, it within a millisecond, it was siphoned out so I could get the entry visa into Aruba. I wasn't happy about that. I didn't want to sell it. But the point of it is that I did have the ability to do it.
Yes.
So what do you think, as opposed to these laws? How is it going to play out, and how is it going to benefit potentially Glint?
Sure. So with all these problems, they've said we need to move back to sound money. We need to give people a choice to be able to use gold and silver as money again. But of course, as we saw 2011, the IRS, for instance, said, well, this isn't really using gold as money. If you're going to use gold coins and eagles and silver, you can't really use those to pay for your coffee or your entry visa in Aruba. Gold, they think, and silver, in order to be real legal tender, can't just be declared by the state. It needs to be functional money. So it needs to be both legal tender and it needs to be functional money. And of course, up until now, that's been the challenge that the states have had. And of course, the privilege that I had, Andy, was traveling around the US and working with some of the action groups who are trying to push this legislation forward, and being able to show people, look, it's really easy using a product like Glint. And then we'll show you in a minute, Glint allows you to buy gold in any amount. So, it benefits those least well off as well as the wealthy. But importantly, be able to spend it, because as we both know, sound money should be something you both save and be able to spend, especially in those times of need. And with the Glint app and MasterCard, you can buy any amount of gold, you can save it, it's stored in a vault. It's in Switzerland. We've just opened the vault with Brinks in Salt Lake City. We'll be giving people the choice eventually to choose whichever vault they want to be able to use that Brinks has around the country, and to be able to spend it anytime you want to with the Glint MasterCard, but also increasingly peer-to-peer, from my account to your account, the ability just to pay gold for mine. Because when we use the MasterCard, and this is the MasterCard I've got here, when I use this, when we swipe that card, when you swipe that in Aruba, they wanted so many dollars, and then a signal came from the merchant and it came to Glint, and we saw how much gold you had in your account, or the system did, and it worked out what the price of gold was in that millisecond, because as you said, this transaction needs to happen very quickly, like within 200 milliseconds. They don't want you waiting there whilst a bunch of little people go off and scratch off some gold. This needs to happen super fast. And we sold just enough gold into the currency of the merchant, and so you could get your entry visa. And that currency was then in dollars, maybe was in Aruba. I don't know if they're still. I used to live in Curacao, so I don't know if they're still using the Dutch guilder anymore. But anyway, into the currency of the merchant, and sent that to the merchant. And of course, that's how this works. So you don't have to worry about what currency the merchant's requiring. You swipe that. They don't even know that you're paying with gold. Of course, you could also see a scenario where you walk down to your local Florida restaurant for lunch, and they actually say that MasterCard's accepted here, Visa, American Express, and Glint, or another type of system like Glint, and you can actually pay them in gold, and they would receive gold. Peer-to-peer, it's called, from one account to another. The MasterCard is integration with the existing financial system, and the peer-to-peer with the app is totally outside of the financial system. All you need for that to work is Elon Musk's internet and your app. So the technology exists. I think this is the thing. This is why it hasn't happened before. The state legislators now have a really strong need that needs solving, and they have the constitutional backing to do it. It's been incredible. At the beginning of this year, we saw that Florida, your state, Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas, and Missouri all passed laws to make transactional gold and silver, as in electronic payments, legal tender, and for that to be able to be used. Utah did pass the legislation, but the governor vetoed it for some reason, maybe because he was going to be first and wasn't sure about that. But, DeSantis was really bullish about it in Florida. We also saw, of course, in Arkansas, Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders was the first to sign it into law. And it was quite phenomenal to watch that happen. But in Florida, you had the whole hierarchy of leadership, including CFO Jimmy Petronas, all following Representative Doug Benson getting this legislation passed. The same happened in Arkansas. Texas, Abbott signed the legislation after Mark DeRazio and Senator Brian Hughes brought it through. I mean, across the country, really, it's been phenomenal. I never thought for 1 minute that governments would be getting behind sound money and the way these states are doing. And of course, we enter a period now where, the next legislative session, where there's up to 17 different states that I was talking to who are looking to do the same thing. Of course, this time they don't have the impediment of being first. Florida and Texas and Arkansas and Missouri and Louisiana have led the charge. I'm very optimistic that a lot of these states will follow passing similar legislation next year, or this year, sorry, as we go into it. I mean, in fact, Kentucky, send a big shout out to Senator Steve Rawlings and Representative T.J. Roberts, because they'll be the first state in this session going forward now to actually be submitting their bill. So I definitely think it's fantastic excitement for everybody interested in sound money.
Two questions that come to mind for me, Jason, real quick. One is, does Glint fit into any of this, with any of these legislative processes that are happening? Is there any intertwining of Glint or possibility, if you're able to say, of coordinating or cooperating with some of the states? And have you heard anything on a national level where, part of what DeSantis is talking about is the removal of any capital gains taxes from the Florida side of things, of course, or other states have mentioned that. But how about nationally? Is there any legislation moving towards the removal of capital gains through the selling of sound money? Using it for commerce, in other words.
Yeah, let's deal with the first point, Glint's involvement. Well, you'll know that we've here at Glint, we've been delusionally pursuing the goal of bringing sound money to the world now for quite a long time. Glint actually launched in the US 6 years ago. Can you believe it? And we remain the first platform in America to be able to offer transactional gold in electronic payments in real time, and I'm a real privilege that we've managed to do that and get ahead of all of this, so we can offer a solution straight away. I mean, America is one of the greatest technological innovators in the world, and they're being drawn to a lot of these states who have been passing this legislation, and so I'm sure we're going to have plenty of competition, but we can and we expect to be. I expect us to be the first company in the world to be, supporting transactional gold legislation, and I'd like to think we'd be the first to be authorized to deal with transactional gold currency, and so we're very excited about that. We're gearing up for it, and of course, anybody with a Glint account now, the idea, looking at the way that the legislation is written and the rules that are being set up, as long as Glint becomes authorized, which we expect to be able to, then of course your currency will then benefit from all of the protections that the state authorization will give you. And because some people might ask, well, why the state's getting involved if a product like Glint exists? Well, there's the 3 T's that the guys at transactionalgold.com came up with: trust, taking, and taxes. Trust. Well, by authorizing a platform like Glint to operate constitutional electronic gold currency, that state establishes a trusted, transparent, and legally recognized system for citizens to hold and spend sound money. So trust is important. We can't bring that level of trust to our product. The state can, though. Taking, guarding against federal overreach. Many of your listeners will know that gold was confiscated and made legal to be owned by individuals between the 1930s and the 1970s. And so state authorization secures their residents' rights to use gold and silver as constitutional currency to preserve that economic freedom and autonomy. And the last one, as you've mentioned, I'm glad you brought it up, is taxes. So the states have certainly, in this legislation, exempted gold and silver from capital gains tax. But what about the federal government? What about the IRS? What are they going to do? Well, there's no way that an authorized currency of the United States of America should be taxed like that in any way. But of course, and Utah, though, passed legal tender act for gold and silver back in 2011, but the IRS turned around and said, I'm sorry, you might very well be made at legal tender, but it's not functional money. So we're going to treat it as a collectible, and we're going to charge you 38%. So if you're lucky enough to have a fortunate gain, which you do have more often than not, then of course you pay that tax. But of course, now with such an authorized transactional currency, that should fall away. It should fall away so it protects working citizens from inflation's that hidden tax on their purchasing power. Now, how is that going to happen? Well, at the federal level, there's a number of ways it could happen. Congress could be lobbied to pass legislation to verify that, yes, the state's actions mean that the IRS has no choice but to drop capital gains tax. But of course, the president himself, who we know is a fan of gold, has the ability to do an executive order. This time, maybe not to create new legislation, but just to verify and confirm that, of course, the states have the right to make this constitutional gold currency, and also which means that the IRS shouldn't be paying capital gains tax. So that's one which we will keep our fingers crossed. That last benefit that the state's actions are going to be bringing to sound money with a product like Glint.
So, we've talked about Glint's utility. MasterCard is accepted everywhere, even in Aruba. You are able to save money as you've put it, in a democratic way. It democratizes, I guess you said, metal holdings because you can buy just a few dollars worth. Mm-hmm. It isn't about buying an ounce at a time. You can buy fractional amounts. The technology, as I can fully attest to, is world-class and incredibly impressive. What about people who have a Glint account and decide at some point, I'd like to take the physical metal out of the Glint account? That's something that we get people asking about from time to time. It's not the reason to own Glint, right? Glint is to me something that allows you benefits that physical metal in your possession really don't, and that is that immediate utility, the ability to carry a credit card in your pocket, go across border, and access it instantly. But what about the people who maybe get to the point where they just want to exit the system? How do we do that?
Yeah, okay. Well, let me just briefly show the people how it works. I'll quickly show you on the app, and then we'll go straight into that. So if I just share my screen, and let's have a quick go at this. Right. So I'm now sharing the screen on my phone. You can see that. Wow, you guys have got some fantastic presentation technology there. That looks awesome. So this actually, I'm in London now, so I'm showing a UK-based version of this app, but the US version is very similar. It just has, instead of having gold, silver, pounds, euros, and dollars, it has US dollars, gold, and silver. We launched silver on the app just before Christmas, and that's gone down really well. Well, actually, you can spend gold, but you can't spend silver yet, but we're going to be switching on the silver relatively soon. But look, you can see that I've got some gold in this account, and I can just go into buy gold one time. I'm going to use the funds that I have in my USD wallet, so I'm choosing USD. And I'm going to show you.
Is that bank, by the way, Jason? Is that a U.S.-based bank where the wallet, where the U.S. dollars are held?
Yeah, the U.S. dollars are held in what's called segregated FDIC-insured accounts. So they're protected from that. I can't remember exactly how much it's protected up to, a couple of $100,000 or something like that. Yeah. And then, of course, I can buy as little as a cent's worth of gold, or let's just buy $10. I'm just showing you this to get across how anybody really can afford to build up a small amount of gold. And I think that's one of the benefits of, you can start building up a small amount no matter who you are. And I'm just going to review that. And I can see that the price of gold is, the fee we're charging, which is 0.9%. I confirm that. and it's done. That was it. That was how easy it was to buy real allocated gold. Now it's allocated gold, that you own that gold. It's not segregated in the same way a gold bar that you might have delivered to you from Miles Franklin is, because you're buying a fraction of one of those large LBMA gold bars that's in the vault and insured by Lloyd's of London. So this is where some of the differences start to happen. But of course, they're all very complementary to each other. But I've done that. I've bought the gold, and then of course in my card I can link my wallet to my gold account, as I have done. And when I want to spend it, let's just see where I spent my gold last. That was a cancelled transaction. But there's a taxi here. Well, here's a Lyft in it wasn't in San Francisco, but I think I was in Dallas. They wanted $45.27. I paid with 0.3369 grams of gold. And that's how easy that is. That's how easy buying gold is, saving it, spending it. And I'll just show your viewers 1 second. The alternative way to pay, apart from the MasterCard, is that send button in the bottom right-hand corner. It's not yet switched on in the US, but we will do once this legislation becomes active. If I go into send, I can send some gold to somebody. I can type the amount in, and I can send that. And they will get that as easy as sending text.
And that's a free transaction, yes?
Yeah, that's free. We might charge a small fee for the merchant in the same way PayPal does, but for consumers, it will be free.
And why is that not active here in the States yet? Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we've been through quite a terrible time previously, haven't we, when it came to rules around alternative currencies. Our crypto brethren got quite a lot of stick and a lot of problems. Some people lost their businesses because it really wasn't clear whether or not the interpretation of the rules, what that was. Were you allowed to do peer-to-peer transactions? When does a money transmitter license come into play, and all of that? And we just felt it was best holding off, switching on peer-to-peer until things became clearer. This administration, whether you love them or hate them, they're definitely making it clear on a number of areas when it comes to things like alternative currencies. Whether it's crypto, and we think also with gold. So we're very happy now, especially with this legislation that the states are passing, to switch that on. We've been protecting our customers' right to be able to use gold as money. That's how the app works. It's really easy, as you said, to use. It only takes a few minutes to register and set up. But what happens when you do want to send some of that gold into and have it delivered to you? I think that's really important, that everybody has some gold.
You also might as well cover in the same explanation if they want to take cash, either one, because it's important to know how great Glint is, how the utility it provides, how easy it is to onboard. Talk about getting off, because I always say people who don't figure out the liquidity and the offboarding of any asset or anything they own, any investment, they're making a mistake, because, the world is fluid and sometimes you need to make choices quickly. If I want to get cash or I want to switch it into my physical gold, how can I do it? Because I think that makes the attractiveness of the product that much better, knowing just how easy it is.
Well, I think this comes close as well to our culture, our philosophy. I had a young product manager and designer developing the graphic user interface as part of the team. And I remember in one of the meetings when we were designing this version of the app, the question was, well, hey, maybe let's not put the withdraw button. Let's not put that on the interface, because that will encourage people to withdraw their funds. Let's hide it away somewhere. And I was like, no. Can you imagine walking in a room? You walk in the room, and then you turn around and can't see the door?
Right.
That would freak you out, yeah? So I said, no, let's make it really clear where it is. So let's talk about, if you want to withdraw into cash, you sell your gold into US dollars, it goes into your USD wallet. There's a fee for that as you exchange from gold into dollars as you would any currency. And then once you've got it in there, you click the withdraw button, and you're able to withdraw those funds into an account in your name. We don't allow it at the moment into third-party accounts, because we're constantly obsessed around protecting your assets and making sure they don't get stolen or anything like that. So you can only transfer those funds back into an account in your name. There might be a bit of friction with with that, you might need to prove through a bank statement or something to our team that you have to send it by email or something that you've got, that is your account. Again, we're always interested and obsessed about reliability and about security. But that's as easy as doing that. You just withdraw it. Now, of course, the other thing to do, maybe you're not near a computer, maybe you're in Aruba, you can just go to the ATM. You can get this card, you can put it in the ATM, and you can withdraw. You can exchange your gold for cash and redeem it right there at the ATM. I think it costs a couple of dollars something to do that. There's a small fee for that. So we're always thinking of ways of doing that. And we'll also be working on, as this legislation around cryptocurrency and the Clarity Act and things like that coming out, we're also going to have a crypto bridge that allow you to sell your gold and have the proceeds transferred into a cryptocurrency of your choice. I think that's important as we move forward. It's all about, for us, giving people choice and utility. Of course, the next thing, which we've just mentioned, is the ability to redeem it for physical metal. Now, if you've got one of those, if you're fortunate enough to have one of those big James Bond bars that's now, $1.5 million or something now, 400-ounce bars, probably more than that. You can do that. We'll have it sent, organize the big trucks or unmarked trucks to come and have it delivered to you by security. You might have a kilo gold bar, which you might be able to get sent to you, etc. If you don't have any of those, then, even if you did, that would come from Miles Franklin. If you wanted to be able, if you had a smaller amount, so say you had enough for an ounce gold eagle or something like that, then you would get in contact with our team. They would tell you how much gold you'd have to sell, because you need to pay for the what's it called, the form factor fee, because you want to take gold that's in a big, LBMA wholesale market gold bar, which is very efficient with very low premiums, and you suddenly want to have a gold coin that's a 1 ounce eagle. Then what happens is there's a small fee that's about the form factor for that coin. Yeah, the premiums on gold coins, as you people might know, are higher than the premium which is negligible on one of those great big gold bars. Because we use those big gold bars to create lots of efficiency within the system. We're trying to keep the costs down as low as possible. So we're using as many efficiencies within the market, and we're using the efficiencies that technology bring to bring that low cost to our customers. When you want to move out of that into physical metals, where you're talking about smaller coins and things, yes, there's a premium. Understandably, someone's got to make that coin and etc. and handle it and deliver it to you. We will sell your gold, and we will sell it at a price without any fee, and that money will be transferred to Miles Franklin, and Miles Franklin will send you that gold coin. Now, that sounds like a bit of a process, doesn't it? And it is. It can be done. It does done. Some people do this. They do get redemption in gold from time to time. But we're going to make it easier as well. As we go into the new year, one of the things on our list to do is a kind of redemption, e-commerce style redemption tool, where you can just select, well, I want 2 of those coins, or I want one of those small bars, or whatever. I want one of those big bars. You can select that. And that information, with your permission, is then sent to Miles Franklin, and then you can deliver it.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I guess in a pinch, if time was of the essence, I suppose you could just use your MasterCard to purchase gold through a company like mine and redeem it. Now, that's not going to be the most cost-efficient way, because you're adding the cost of the MasterCard, which is 3-4%. But the utility is there. The ability to liquidate it either in cash or in metal in kind is there. What other questions should I be asking? What other questions would you want to know, knowing what you do, if you're on the other side of the table? Is there anything that people should really know that you find to be a important characteristic of Glint that makes it stand out?
Yeah, sure. I mean, one of the things actually that a lot of our users get wrong is they think that buying gold with a MasterCard or funding your account with a MasterCard is the only way to do that. It's not. It is easy, but we do charge 3% because we've got to cover those expensive MasterCard fees. you can do an ACH transfer and that'll cost nothing. Or you can do a wire transfer, I think is very, very small for large amounts. If you want to do that, it's about $10, $12, something like that. So there are other ways to pay. Sometimes with the ACH, the banks aren't always the first to make it smooth and easy for you. You might need to change the amount that you're trying to transfer into the product a couple of times before they okay it and stuff like that. And once you're into the swing of it, then those ACHs start to work really smoothly. You might be lucky and it happens first time. But I think I encourage people to also use ACH bank transfers. What else? I think that, we're a regulated business. We lent into regulation, Andy. We became regulated by the UK's Financial Conduct Authority right from the very beginning. And we're leaning into this because at the end of the day, governments are not going to allow you to use gold as money unless you're compliant with the rules of the law and the land. And what does that mean for our users? Well, the positives are that it means that we have processes and systems in there that are designed to protect you and your funds. Very, very different from a lot of companies out there who haven't, especially in payments, have shunned that. And we did see a lot of cryptocurrency platforms not doing the things that we had to do as a compliant company, such as, making sure that we know who our customers are. And, some people, not many, but some people are a bit surprised by all the questions we ask when you register. Well, there's a reason why we do that. It's to remain compliant with the laws and regulations. But why are those rules and regulations there? We're not passing that information on like a stream of information to the authorities. What we use it for is to protect your account. You might be fortunate enough, Andy, and your people in Mars Franklin to know your customers intimately. And I know you take great pride in building those relationships. It's impossible for us to be able to do that with hundreds of thousands of clients, right? So what we do our best. We think, okay, so we gather information on you and we use that information to protect your account. So if somebody rings up and says, hey, I'm Andy Schectman, I'd like to withdraw my money to this separate bank account, we don't just do that straight away. We do the checks based on the information we have about you. So, I just say, we treat your information with the highest level of security and white glove. We don't share it with any marketing companies. You're not going to get phone calls from somebody else from the data that you give us. So we look after that very securely. But it's there to secure you and it's to secure your gold. At the end of the day, as I said, reliability is the heart of our mission and vision.
And how about customer service? What if people have a question or a problem? What's the best way? How do you get help with onboarding, offboarding, problems with the card?
Yeah,
general questions.
So we have a customer service team, and they're available for telephone calls. I'd say restrict telephone calls to be when you absolutely desperately need to speak to somebody, because there's a finite resource there. And we'd actually restrict the hours in which you can call up in order to allow our team to answer emails. Emails are the fastest and most efficient way for us to help you with your problems. 99% of people's challenges, Andy, are they're new to it. They don't know how to use the product, and maybe our app isn't as intuitive ultimately as it perfectly could be. And so we're trying to help people by showing them what to do. There's YouTube videos on how to do things. There's FAQs on our website. And email is often the fastest way and the best way to get customer support. But there is a telephone line as well, and you can get through to people. Sometimes if we're busy, you have to wait a few minutes. The other thing, of course, is if we do want to get in touch with you, and we do send you an email, then of course make an appointment and stick to it. Because a lot of the time, I know everyone is busy, but when someone calls you up, it is frustrating if you've missed them, then you can't get in touch with our team, and our team can't get in touch with you. We've got to work together on this, but we're willing, we're doing our best to support people, and we put customer service high on our list. And we must be doing something right, Andy, about the proposition, about everything we're doing, because last time I checked, we had something like 4.8 stars out of 5. And mainly 5 stars, with the odd 1 star because our product is no longer available in Romania or something like that.
Well, hey, you never know. There are a lot of Romanians that want some gold. Yeah. I get it, and I'm proud to represent in every way working with you and with Glint. And this is going to be something that I intend to have these kind of discussions with you, not just on the workings of Glint, but to keep up on what's happening legislatively, to talk about the reasons why to buy Glint. Let people feel more comfortable with what you're doing. Twice a month, you're going to come on, we're going to talk, if not more. Every other Monday, I'd like to have you on so that people start to feel more comfortable about your fantastic product. And I don't put my name behind something easily and readily. I thought enough about it to invest in the company and to put Miles Franklin's name associated with Glint and with Jason Cozens. So, Jason, you are a proper gentleman. I appreciate you very much. I do want to do this again every other week, and this will be the kickoff. And I look forward to picking up where we left off in a couple of weeks. And maybe in the meantime, if people have questions, send them in to info@milesfranklin.com, questions you'd like me to ask Jason. And, anything goes, whether it be about the macro side of things or the product side of things or anything that we've talked about here with legislative news and happenings. And Jason, it's always good to see you, my man. I see it's nighttime there in London. I'm going to let you get home, but look forward to doing it with you again real soon, and hope you stay well until we chat next.
Yeah, Andy, and thank you so much. We value our relationship here. I've been super stoked to have met you and the team at Miles Franklin. What an awesome group of people you are. I'd encourage people to go and download the Glint app. It's free. You don't need to download it. You just have to buy $10 worth of gold or something to get in and have a look around and try it out for yourself. Make sure you type in Andy24. That's ANDY 24. During the registration process, you'll be asked about referrals, so we know that you've come from listening to this podcast. Look, stay tuned. There's so much happening. It's unbelievable. There are a time in our lives where we're faced with all of these challenges that we've actually got a glint of hope, because we do have the products and the services at hand to be able to help you. This stuff that's happening in the US legislative side of things is monumental. We're actually talking about the second authorized currency of the United States of America, and that can't happen without your help. So stay tuned, and thanks for your support.
Thank you, Jason. Look forward to chatting with you again soon, my man. You stay well.
Thank you, Andy.
This is Little by Little with Andy Schectman.